Morning, please take a seat. Well, how do you wash away a sense of guilt? It's not a physical problem, so no amount of scrubbing in the shower is going to help, is it? And our sense of guilt isolates us from God and isolates us from His people. I wonder if you've ever felt like that. Well, this passage that we just heard read, it has some great news for us. It shows us that Jesus pronounces us clean in God's sight, once and for all. And being made clean, we can be in God's presence, His loving and life-giving presence, and not in His wrathful presence. And so we should express our thanks to God for His mercy and grace, just like the man who returned to Jesus in thanks and praise. In this passage, we're introduced to the dire situation of 10 people with a dire skin disease. Now, these skin diseases were physically painful. Open sores, wounds, all over the body, from head to toe. But even more painful, perhaps, was that these diseases were very isolating. Notice that Luke says they stood at a distance. See, this is in line with what the Old Testament taught about people with skin diseases, what they had to do. It says in Leviticus, the person with this disease shall wear torn clothes and let the hair of his head hang loose, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." And he shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He shall live alone, and his dwelling shall be outside the camp. So not only do these people with this skin disease have to suffer physical pain, but also suffer the pain of being isolated from community. And being made to live apart from community and people is especially painful and difficult because we're relational beings made in the image of God, who's in relationship Himself, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, these skin diseases, they weren't contagious. So the reason why these people were separated from the community was not that no one else would get the disease. Rather, in the Old Testament times, these diseases served as a reminder to the people of the nature of sin and its seriousness. See, the person who was suspected to have the disease was to be presented before the priest of God. The priest would inspect the diseased person, and if this disease was deeper than skin deep, if it was chronic, if it was pervasive, the priest would pronounce this person unclean. It was as if God Himself was saying, "You are not worthy to be in my presence." Additionally, any garment that was contaminated by this disease was to be incinerated. And this was to show what would happen ultimately to unclean people in the presence of a holy God. All these procedures were to remind the people of the nature and the seriousness of their sin. See, skin is deeper than skin deep. It's not that we're clean people who just get dirty on the surface from time to time, but our spiritual uncleanness comes from the inside and shows itself on the outside in our actions. It's a universal problem of the heart that affects each one of us. Sin is also chronic, just like the skin disease was chronic. It's not that we're clean most of the time and get dirty sometimes. These skin diseases show us that we're unclean all of the time because naturally our heart is unclean. And sin is also pervasive. It's not that there are some parts of us that are good and clean, but that sin affects our entire being. There's no aspect of ourselves that is unaffected by sin. So as with these skin diseases, our sin is deeper than skin deep. It's chronic and pervasive. And as a result of this sin, our sin, in our natural state, we're unable to be in the presence of God or His people. These skin diseases were a visual aid that God used in the Old Testament to teach us and give us an understanding of sin and the need for forgiveness. It hits home when we read in Leviticus that for this person with a skin disease to be declared clean had to offer a sin offering. He had to make a payment to be cleansed from his uncleanness. He had to sacrifice an unblemished animal and be sprinkled by its blood and by clean water. And only after this could the priest declare this person ritually clean and the person be able to rejoin the community. Now at this point we might think that it's unfair for God to make some people experience these things as an object lesson for others. But we need to realize that it wasn't that these people with the skin disease were particularly sinful and those without the skin disease aren't sinful. The Bible says that we're all by nature sinful. So the skin disease and the rules regarding what people should do was actually to display God's wisdom and His glory. See, God's glory is that He makes people who are naturally unclean clean. God doesn't leave us to rot in our painful and isolated situation. He provides a way for us to be forgiven and to be cleansed from all our sins. And only by God making us and declaring us clean can we be with God and His people. Now if we turn back to Luke, we see that these 10 diseased people cried out to Jesus. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. In that era, such diseased people were seen as good as dead. However, when Jesus saw them, He had mercy on them, and He said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, the people were cleansed. See, Jesus doesn't turn people away when they come to Him, but He does require them to obey His word and to trust Him. So the diseased men, all 10 of them, set off, putting their trust in Jesus' words. And as they were going along, they were cleansed. It's nothing short of a miracle, similar even to someone rising from the dead. See, God had set out procedures for what to do when a person with a skin disease was cured. But even so, it would have been an extremely rare occurrence if you think that modern medicine wasn't invented at the time. If you had a skin disease, you could hope maybe that you might be cured, but it was only by a miracle of God and mercy of God that this would actually happen. And so, as these 10 men put their faith and trust in Jesus, they were miraculously healed from their physical sores on their bodies. We read on. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, he came back. Now, why would this man do that? See, according to God's law in Leviticus, this man was required to present himself to the priests at the temple to be declared clean. But he doesn't go to the temple, he doesn't go to the priest. Instead, he comes back to Jesus. See, the priests were the ones that were meant to go between the people and God. But all the priests, however, we're actually pointing to Jesus, the one who is both God and man, so who can truly go between God and man. Jesus is the true priest, and he's the only one that can actually do this. But if Jesus declares you clean, if God himself declares you clean, you are clean indeed. But Jesus' priestly declaration isn't just an empty declaration. We really are cleansed. While we might not have a visible skin disease, the Bible says it's as if we're plagued by a spiritual skin disease, and that's sin. But Jesus graciously cleanses those who cry out to Jesus for mercy. Well, how is this possible? It's possible because 2,000 years ago, Jesus sacrificed his life for our sins on the cross to cleanse us and bring us into God's loving and life-giving presence. Jesus became the once and for all sin offering that cleanses us all from our sin and uncleanness. See, throughout the history of Israel, the people continually had to offer offerings at the temple to be declared clean and forgiven. But these sacrifices were all actually pointing to the ultimate, once and for all sacrifice that Jesus Christ would pay on the cross. So those who trust in Jesus are no longer unclean, but clean. We don't have to stand fearful, away from God, distant from him, feeling unworthy or unclean. We get to approach him boldly, not because of our own righteousness, but because of the righteousness and the cleanliness that Jesus gives us when he declares, "You are clean." So not only is Christ the great high priest who declares us spiritually clean, but Jesus is also the sacrifice itself that makes us clean. And just like the one who was cleansed and received God's mercy by faith, we too receive God's mercy by faith. It's by faith in Jesus and trust in him that we're saved and made clean. We trust in his goodness towards us. Now, if you're still in doubt that God really, really cleanses you and saves you, notice that the person who came back to Jesus says that he was a Samaritan. See, he wasn't even an Israelite. He was a foreigner. He was not part of God's people. We, as Australians, are not physically Israelites, but by putting our trust in Jesus, we spiritually become people of God. And by it, we are given the right to call God our loving Father through Jesus, his Son, and through the Holy Spirit, his Spirit that he gives us. See, God shows his kindness and goodness to those who confidently expect everything from him. It's by faith in the kindness and goodness of God that we receive everything from him, just like the leper, through his faith, received cleansing and salvation. But we need to remember, though, that Jesus' purpose is not simply to do some physical healing miracle, but it's actually to bring us back into a relationship with God, who is life-giving and loving Father. The man who did come back to Jesus entered into a relationship with him. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and praised God in a loud voice and thanked him. See, I think this man perceived what his skin disease actually represented. He realized that he was a sinful being, unfit to be in the presence of God. But now, being made clean, he was fit to be in God's loving and life-giving presence. And so appropriately, he gives thanks. He returns to Jesus in praise and worship. his acts of worship are not just a bow of his head out of respect, but a falling on his face, lying prostrate. See, this man who returned, he equated Jesus with God. He realized who he'd encountered. He realized that he no longer needed to go to the temple to meet God. He could meet God in Jesus. See, the temple was only a shadow of the real thing. Jesus is the temple where we get to meet God. Notice Jesus' words to the man who came back. Rise and go. Your faith has made you well. It wasn't just that the man was made well of his skin disease. He was more than that, wasn't he? He'd been as good as dead, physically and socially. But in fact, in God's eyes, he was spiritually dead. But now, he'd been made alive, spiritually alive. He'd been unclean in God's sight, unworthy to be in God's presence. But Jesus saved him from his spiritual condition. And just as the priest was meant to declare the man clean, Jesus, as God's ultimate high priest, said, your faith has made you well. In other words, Jesus was saying, your faith in me and in my words has raised you to life from your spiritual deadness. I've made you fit to be in God's most holy and loving and life-giving presence, and not to be destroyed by his wrathful presence. This sort of genuine faith sees Jesus for who he is, thanks God for what Jesus has done, and comes back to enjoy more of Jesus. But what about the 9 other men? Jesus asked, where are they? He was appalled that they didn't come back in thanks and praise. See, I don't think these men recognized that their condition was an image of a deeper and more fundamental condition. And so they didn't return to Jesus to give him thanks and praise. Now, despite the reassurance of this passage that Jesus receives and forgives those who come to him, we may still feel unworthy sometimes and unclean because of our sins. In those times, we should ask God, our Father, for forgiveness, and then be assured that all our sins have already been paid for once and for all by Jesus. We don't need to stand in distance in fear, but we can boldly approach God's throne of grace and obtain mercy and forgiveness. See, the only way that we can wash away our sense of guilt is not by going into the shower and having a deep scrub, but it's by Jesus cleansing our hearts through his blood. In the past, every unclean thing that came into contact with the holiness of God was utterly destroyed. But now, after Jesus' death and resurrection, all of us who receive Jesus' mercy are not destroyed, but have been saved and made clean. If you're yet to believe Jesus and follow Jesus, or if you're unsure or worried that you are accepted by God, then come to Jesus. Cry out to him. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Tim and I would love to pray with you if that's the case. And for us who are already followers of Jesus, and let's together join in the one who returned to Jesus in thanks and praise.